So when you have a former police officer turned expert, you're going to want to do a couple of things. First of all, you're going to want to establish his familiarity with the standardized field sobriety tests. You're going to also want to have him admit that NHTSA created them. This builds credibility for you in what your officer has already testified to. You'll also want to have him agree with you that he has also relied upon these very same standardized field sobriety tests in all of the arrests that he made during his career. Most of these officers turned experts were DUI officers. So when they tell you that these field sobriety tests don't work, that kind of throws it back into their face if you can say, hey, but weren't these the same tests that you were doing when you were making arrests during your career? Further, you want to get the expert to agree with you about the clues that he did observe in the video, thus supporting your officer's observations. Ms. Earlywine did a good job of this during her cross-examination of the defense expert. One of the things that I would do is while I have that expert on the stand, I would have, say, even just a notepad or a dry erase board behind me, and as that officer, their expert, agreed with you as to certain clues that they saw during the video, I would then be writing those down during the course of the officer's testimony, the ex-officer's testimony, their defense expert. And then when you get to your closing argument, you can step back and point to those same clues, those same admissions by their own defense expert and say, hey folks, in the jury, the defendant's own expert said the defendant failed on this part. The defendant exhibited this type of clue. The defendant showed this indicator of impairment. And you can use those words against the defense team. One of the other things you'll want to do is challenge their expert on any other observations that he makes that aren't apparent in the video. What we saw in the mock trial video is that their defense expert was saying things such as the wind was blowing and it was making it difficult for the defendant to perform on the test. There were bright lights, the sun was in his eyes, there was lots of noise, etc. But you can point out that there weren't these things. That in regards to the video, if you look at the DUI mock trial video that we're showing you, the trees aren't bending, there aren't paper products flying by, and the officer is having no problem at all standing there while these giant wind gusts are coming by. So if you point these out, then the jury can see that they're just kind of making up stuff as they go. One of the other things that I think is really good about what Ms. Earlywine does in the video is when it comes to the defense contention that the sun was in Mr. Mason's eyes, she asks her officer, did the defendant ever complain about the sun being in his eyes? And he did not. And the final question you would want to ask their defense expert is, officer, wouldn't you agree with me that Detective Malinowski was in a much better position to make an arrest, having personally been present, having spent over 3 hours with the defendant, than you are from merely watching a video?